right, I think it's close enough. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District for Wednesday, April 6, 2022 at 5 p.m. at the district's office. Could I ask Director Boyd Hodgson to lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure. Ready? Again.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next is roll call. And we're all here. I forgot I was waiting for it.
I forgot how to do it.
This is our first meeting.
Wait for
back
the
in a
verbal.
while. All right, additions. The next is additions to the agenda. I have no proposed additions. So next we'll move to adoption of tonight's agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda. Please vote. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Next is public comment. I'll dispense with reading that since we have no public tonight. And so we're on to presentation.
Yeah, I'll take that, President Noblethorpe. And we have some special guests with us tonight. So I want to introduce Mr. Andy Sells. Andy is the Chief Executive Officer of the Aqua JPIA. We also have David Drake, and David is on the Executive Committee for Aqua JPIA. And David's also the President of Rincon del Diablo. We also have Adrian Beatty, who is the Assistant CEO, is that the title, with Aqua JPIA, and they're here with a special gift for Vallecitos. So Andy, if you want to take the microphone there.
Well, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. It's kind of neat to be back in person again, right? It's been like 2 years since we were able to visit with water districts around the state. I'm here today to present you folks. We're here today to present you folks with a refund check for $126,949. And so congratulations to the board here at Vallecitos. It's with your participation in our liability, property, and workers' comp programs. But I'd be remiss, I know you guys do a great job, but quite frankly, Glenn and the staff is really the one who get the kudos here. They do a good job. You guys are kind of one of the leaders around San Diego County for us. I know Peter Kaczynski is one of our risk advisors that works with staff and always has a lot of good things to say about your staff. You know, it's interesting. I don't show up here a lot with large refund checks, and quite frankly, it's because of how well the staff does. So our programs are what we call experience rated, and some of you may have seen that before. So like in the liability program, your loss history is compared to the average in the pool. And if you're doing better than average, you get a discount. So instead of being the regular premium, maybe it's if you have an EMOD of like 0.9, in essence, you're paying 90% of the premium that year. And same thing applies in the workers' comp program. You guys are regularly less than 1. I think right now on the liability program, I want to think you're like at 0.61 or something. So since we collect fewer dollars from you up front, it means fewer dollars go your way on the backside. So this is really not a result of the districts doing, it's the pool has done well for the last several years, workers' comp in particularly, and that's really where you guys shine as well. I think your EMOD in the work comp program is 0.77. So in essence, you get a 25% discount across the board in your work comp program, and in the liability, it's 0.62. So it's almost a 40% discount. So when we don't collect very much money from you up front, it's hard to give you a lot of money on the backside. Now, I don't say that to those districts that I bring large dollars to. I just tell them congratulations. But I think it's important that you know, and that really hats off to staff, the effort that they put in to do these things. Even during the pandemic, they were really quite involved. To give you an idea, I've got a few little stats here. You guys had over 100 employees participate in our online training programs, over 650 classes, 646, almost 650 classes over a 2-year period that they did online during that pandemic time. So that shows you what kind of involvement your staff has looking at safety, not only for their personal safety, but the safety of the facilities and the quality, and really for the liability program, the safety for your constituents and the public there. So really hats off there. You guys do an excellent job year after year. It's not a coincidence that we're here. You have about 4 or 5 employees, 4 employees enrolled, and we have a professional development program in areas like operations, new employees, new supervisors, HR. You got 4 employees enrolled in that program, and each of those takes about 40 hours of classroom time to complete those programs. We even have a year-long professional development program, and you have an employee that went through that as well. So you guys do take advantage of the resources there. It shows in the low E-mods that show up here. And again, congratulations. They do a very good job, and obviously you're giving them the resources to do that. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David,
Thank you.
you know these people. What do you have to say?
Proud to be their neighbor. And I also inadvertently chair the workers' comp committee. So I get to see the gruesome details behind things and how they happen. And the devil is in the details. The people that do the work, do the effort, do the training, listen to their people about how to reduce risk. And you guys have done a very good job of that. That pays back. And here's how it pays back right here. So power to you. If we were a commercial insurance company, we'd just take the money and say, thank you. But no, we give it back to you. Adrian, you want to take that?
This is Adrian Bates. She is our new, 4 months now, assistant executive officer.
I'm old hat now.
Yeah, she is. So let's see if she's learned anything. Somebody, Jim, you're in insurance?
I am in
I'm
insurance.
expecting a good question. I want to see what she knows.
Okay.
Test my knowledge.
All
see
right,
what's fluff.
I can do that.
Yeah, so I'm new to water districts and new to the GPAA, but I've been in the insurance and risk pooling industry for quite a long time. I've worked with 7 different risk pools, school districts, cities, towns, housing authorities. I've worked with pools in Washington State and California. I've worked for state leagues. I've done administration by contract. So I've seen the gamut of how risk pools operate, and I'm incredibly impressed with the JPIA and its members specifically. The JPIA is well known in the California pooling industry. So just as a frame of reference, there's about 200 risk pools in the entire United States. There's 100 of them in the state of California. So there's a lot of risk pools. It's highly competitive. It's highly collaborative. And the JPIA is well known. The membership of the JPIA are incredibly committed to risk management and to the organization as a whole. And you guys are, we get these little packets of information when we come out and give these presentations. So we kind of, have some of the tidbits about what's going on with each of the districts. And I got to tell you, your packet kind of just floors me. I mean, Andy talked about a lot of it. Your experience factor in both the liability and work comp programs is incredibly low. You beat the average almost every year. In the past 3 years, we've not paid a single claim above your retention in the liability program. You also got grant monies in addition to all of the training and things that you do. Our grant program requires you to actively apply for those funds. You got a grant last year. I don't know what the exact amount was, but you got a grant for I saw on your screen there that you were going to talk about something with the Meadowlark reclamation facility. For that facility specifically, you got a grant because you have these holes in the ground that the employees have to go down and check sludge levels and things like that. We helped you pay to install 30 floor hatches over those, because those are obviously a big fall hazard and could cause workers' compensation claims. So you guys are incredibly proactive in what you're doing, and you should be really, really proud of all the hard work that your staff is doing. And we're lucky in the JPA to have a lot of districts that are really proactive about what they do, and that's what makes the organization great, and that's why we're able to come and give these big check backs. So.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that sounds like a great segue to a photo opportunity, unless the board had some comments they wanted to make.
Well, I'd just like to say, I personally give all the credit to staff. I probably speak for my fellow board members, but we give them the tools to do their job, and then we get out of their way and they do a fantastic job. And we really appreciate Aqua JPIA's programs and support that promote and enhance our safety culture here. So I want to thank you.
They do a good job. Peter's our employee who lives in Vista, near Vista there, who works with them, and he always has good things to say about his staff. Very cool.
Very good. Any other comments?
No. Very good.
You said it.
So if you can all come on down, we'll get a group picture. Yeah, do you need someone taller to take the picture?
She needs Chris's laugh. Yeah, we'll make the board president. We'll make the board members checks here. Yeah. I don't think it's one. Here, get the board in here. Everybody back here? Got it all?
Yeah, I got it. 1, 2, 3. That's good.
Okay.
Good job.
And Andy, we'll get a copy of the picture to you. I don't know what you guys-
Yeah, I'm gonna get this card that's for you. Send it to me. We'll flash it up at the board meeting. So make Jim look for your picture up there.
Okay.
Yeah. And no, still called the perspective.
Oh, that's nice. Well, good. Now we get to figure out how to spend it.
That's right.
Hot dog.
We already did that.
Oh, did you already, that, we are, this is the one we already did. Okay.
I was wondering if this was a new one.
Your employee going through a year-long training program.
Oh.
Great, good job, James.
Take care.
Year long? Did you
It's a
say?
year plus. And President Elitharp, if I may, will we have a moment, introduce our kind of newest employee, Jason Hubbard. So Jason, raise your hand. You guys heard his name and we talked about him, but there's the person, there's the face part. So
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Happy to be here.
Welcome back.
welcome back. It's a
Thank you.
welcome back.
Thank you, directors.
All right, let's move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are expected to be routine and uncontroversial, and be acted upon by the board by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a member of the public requests that a particular item be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it will be considered separately under action items. Okay. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, on to action items. 2.1 Metal Arc Water Reclamation Facility Chlorine Contact Tank Expansion Project Design Engineering Professional Services Agreement Award.
Yeah, so we have the water reclamation facility down at Meadow Lark, and it has a series of processes, and there's a kind of a bottleneck in the process. And this is a project to remove that bottleneck and have all the parts kind of match the capacity. And I think Ryan Morgan is going to give the presentation, and Ryan is our capital facilities senior engineer. So Ryan, take it away.
Thank you, General Manager Pruitt. Good evening, directors of the board. It's a pleasure to be in front of you tonight. As General Manager Pruitt mentioned, the Meadow Lark Water Reclamation Facility Chlorine Contact Tank Expansion Project Design Engineering Professional Services Agreement Award item. As you can see on the graphic in yellow, the chlorine contact tanks, there's 2 existing chlorine contact tanks at Meadow Lark Reclamation Facility and the southeast quadrant of the plant. These tanks have been in service for some time now. They were last improved in the 1980s. It's 2 tanks set up in a series. It is the final disinfection process in the reclaimed water treatment train. Design peak flow of these contact tanks combined is 5 million gallons per day. Both of these tanks were operationally re-rated to that capacity in the 2005 plant expansion. And the 5 MGD capacity at Meadowlark is dictated by this chlorine contact tank process, which really serves as a bottleneck at the plant, whereas the rest of the plant could provide a capacity up to 6.5 MGD. These tanks limit it to 5. As a member of the North County Water Reuse Coalition, staff secured grant funding of approximately $850,000 under Prop 84, awarded by the State Water Resources Control Board, plus up to a 25% match of total project costs in future rounds of funding. Project reimbursements through recycled water rates will also be acquired from the district's existing recycled water customers in Olivenheim Municipal Water District and the city of Carlsbad. This project is an operational priority to the district. Its completion would equate to a 1.5 million gallon per day capacity increase. And this project has been scheduled for planning and design in fiscal year 2021, 2022 within that CIP budget. The district submitted a request for proposals to a total of 4 engineering firms on December 1st, 2021. The firms were asked to present their experience in designing wastewater disinfection process and structural improvement projects of similar nature. The 4 firms requested were Kleinfelder, Kennedy Jenks, Michael Baker International, and Lee and Rowe. Staff received proposals from all 4 firms on January 14th, 2022. District engineering and operations staff reviewed the proposals and evaluated each firm based on their experience on similar projects and overall RFP responsiveness, including their technical approach, scope of work, labor estimate, fee, and schedule. Evaluations of proposals were completed on February 14th, 2022. Kleinfelder was determined to be the most responsive and qualified consultant, and staff followed up to discuss the scope of work and request clarifications, additional geotechnical engineering services, and some operational flexibility design elements in the scope. Kleinfelder provided a revised scope of work and a not to exceed fee of $355,385 for design and bid phase professional engineering and environmental services. Project scope, proposal results, and staff recommendations were presented to the Engineering and Equipment Committee on March 22nd, 2022. As for the fiscal impact, which is identified on page 43 of your board packet, the project is identified in the current fiscal year 21-22 with a total budget amount of $4,719,000. The project will be funded through an approximate $850,000 Prop 84 grant, as previously mentioned, plus additional grant funding opportunities as well. The remainder will come from district reclaimed water funds. The total estimated project cost and budget summary are provided on page 43, which as of today are not carried out to total as contract award is still a ways off in the future. But as you can see, $355,385 in consultant design bid, engineering and environmental services, project design, staff services and overhead, total about $165,000. For a total of $520,385. It's with this that staff, with support from the Engineering and Equipment Committee, recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Kleinfelder in the not to exceed amount of $355,385 for project design and bid phase engineering and environmental services for the Meadowlark chlorine contact tank expansion project. With that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Any questions for Ryan?
I just had a kind of a nut and bolt question. I mean, what are they actually doing? Are you improving the tanks? Are we expanding them? Are we doing both? Or, I mean, what are they doing?
Expanding the tank's capacity, the volume of the tanks. And in this case, the preferred approach was to, through demolition and installation of a 3rd tank that will increase the capacity that we require.
So they'll demo these 2 tanks that are there now. We rebuild 3 new ones. Is that what I am?
If ideally, we will protect these 2 tanks in place, refurbish them rehabilitate them, and then build a third adjacent to the north of these existing two tanks. It's quite a bit of demolition and shoring and protecting of an existing process. The good news is during this project, we do not have to remain in operation of the chlorine contact process. So that actually helps in the construction process of this.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Is there some downtime for that then? Is that gonna?
We are able to send our secondary effluent through the failsafe to the ocean outfall. And that, as of right now, is the current plan.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I have a couple. So you mentioned that this was first, these were first modified or rehabilitated in the 1980s. So it's been a while. I am wondering, my first question is, presumably if we approve this and we have more capacity, that we're setting up, infrastructure that presumably will be in place for the next 30 years-ish. Is there any reason to believe that in the next 30 years or so that the technology will change and that we won't get a full useful life out of this project? My second question is, do we have plans in place that are environmentally sound so that as we're working on the chlorine, that we can make sure that we are being safe as we, draw it down to refurbish the tanks and then put it back so that it doesn't leach out into the environment?
Sure, good question. First of all, to answer your first question, the technologies in place for disinfection are primarily, chlorine disinfection or sodium hypochlorite bulk storage and injection, which is actually a different CIP project coming to Meadowlark, which we've presented to the board in the past. Those two projects are closely related because of the process which is involved. And as you're aware, we're getting away from chlorine gas as a safety mitigation hazard that we're moving forward with for operations. Ultraviolet treatment is also a potential disinfection possibility instead of chlorine disinfection. As part of Kleinfelder's scope of work, they're actually going to investigate and provide an assessment, a study, looking at chlorine disinfection versus UV and what opportunities may exist to install a parallel UV train that could potentially benefit operations as having just additional redundancy at the plant. However, the technology of disinfection, it has been tried and true, and it's not anticipated to vary from what exists today or what could potentially exist through UV process improvements as well.
Okay.
Addressing the second part of your question, Kleinfelder's scope also includes CEQA environmental services, where they will be required to comply with CEQA codes and rules, regulations. If we are required to perform a full initial study and mitigated negative declaration as part of this work, then we will do that. If it's possible to achieve a categorical exemption, which I don't believe it is, due to the capacity increase, which we're looking at, we would do that as well. However, it's unlikely that we would be granted a categorical exemption. So more than likely, a full initial study, mitigated negative declaration per CEQA will be required as part of this project, and that has been scoped and planned for within Kleinfelder's scope of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just add that, Ryan's correct. The technology is pretty much been in use for decades, and it really is, sound technology. And the district has looked in the past and looked at that ozone operations versus chlorine, and there's a big operational component to going to an operational cost to going to ozone. So just from an efficiency standpoint, this is probably the best choice for the district, but we don't want to completely rule that out. So it's really good to flesh that out, and we're going to do that through this process. So, and yeah, like you mentioned, going to chlorine gas as far as environmentally safe, that's really going to be, the best course for the district.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just curious, what's the timing of the gas chlorine conversion?
Just talking about that.
Staff has prioritized that project to go first in order and to reduce the amount of work going on at the plant at one time. We don't want both projects going on in construction together. So we're going to try to sequence it so that the conversion to sodium hypochlorite will go first in construction and the CCT expansion will go next.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is, looking at UV or ozone as potential options, they don't carry a residual into the reclaim system, so you'd still have to have probably liquid chlorination anyway. So.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And rules, regulations, Department of Drinking Water standards, things that there'd be a hurdle to overcome there. And with the existing infrastructure that is there, it's cost efficiencies to add to the process that's already there.
Yeah, and as you know, this affects our permit as well. So any changes, we'd have to go back through DDW and do that. And even with UV, there's still the possibility of off-spec water that DDW would have you deal with. So these are things to consider.
Okay, any other questions?
Move to approve.
For the motion to approve?
Second.
You're good.
Motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation. There's no other discussion, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 2.2, construction contract award for sewer lining and rehabilitation.
Yes, I'll kick that off and I'll hand it back over to Ryan. So get used to him. I think he's the star of the show tonight. So as part of the district's asset management program, we regularly clean and inspect our sewer system. And when we notice problems, we come up with capital improvement programs or projects to correct those. And that's what this project is. So Ryan will walk you through the effort and what's proposed. Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you, General Manager Pruitt. These programs come along every 2-3 years. For the 2021 program of the sewer lining and rehabilitation, operations and maintenance have identified structural defects and operational defects in existing segments of 8-inch, 10-inch, and 12-inch diameter vitrified clay pipe, ductile iron pipe, sanitary sewer segments throughout 44 different locations among the district. Those locations are illustrated for you on the graphic in front of you. This is just to show you generalities of all these locations as they span throughout the district. The sewers require rehab to restore structural or operational integrity to the sewers. Over time, those defects occur quite naturally. This will be accomplished using cured in place pipe, CIPP, which uses trenchless technology to make fully structural repairs from within the hose pipe. This increases efficiency of rehabilitation and it extends the service life of the defective pipeline. Sewer rehabilitation by CIPP technology is a proven and effective technique and reduces disruptive impacts to Vallecitos customers during construction. A summary of the sewer rehab is provided on page 45 of your board packet, which totals 44 total sewer segments. 42 of those are full lining, manhole to manhole. And there are 2 spot repairs. And there are a total of 3 top hats, which are repairs to laterals coming into the sewer main. In total of 8-inch rehab, we have nearly 8,000 linear feet. Of 10-inch diameter rehab, 360 linear feet. And 12-inch diameter rehab, 511 feet. District staff received and opened bids from 5 contractors on March 3rd, 2022, with bid results illustrated on page 45 of your board packet. Those contractors were NorCal Pipeline Services, New Line Technologies, Southwest Pipeline and Trenchless Corporation, Sancon Technologies, In Situ Form Technologies, and that is it. Staff and council completed the evaluation of bids and qualifications and discovered multiple irregularities in more than one bid. NorCal Pipeline Services bid, the low bid, did not fulfill the district's requirements to provide a minimum of 5 years of experience. As a result of this irregularity, NorCal Pipeline Services bid was considered non-responsive. New Line Technologies was the next apparent low bidder, but unfortunately listed the wrong subcontractor, contractor state license board license number, which is an uncorrectable error beyond a 24-hour period following the bid opening. Due to this irregularity, New Line Technologies bid was also considered non-responsive. The third in line, Southwest Pipeline and Trenchless Corporation's bid was the third lowest bid, which was free from irregularities and considered responsive. The project scope, bid results, and staff recommendation were presented to the Engineering and Equipment Committee on March 22nd, 2022. Project is identified in the fiscal year 2021-22 budget with a budget amount of $870,000. Project is funded 100% through the district sewer replacement funds. Staff prepared contract documents, including the design specifications and bid package, and staff will also perform engineered services during construction management, and inspection. The total estimated project costs and budget summary are identified on page 46 of your board packet, with $634,086 of construction, 10% contingencies, and staff costs. We are at a total of $823,751, which provides about a $46,000 surplus if we stay on track with that. It's with this that staff, with the support from the Engineering and Equipment Committee, recommends authorizing the general manager to execute a construction contract with Southwest Pipeline and Trenchless Corporation in the amount of $634,086 for the sewer lining and rehabilitation 2021 project, subject to the provisions of the contracts. I will take any questions you may have.
Questions? Director Snell?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Just curious, these 40 or so locations that are going to be rehabbed, were they identified through our asset management program or our new asset management program, or is this kind of just part of our routine where they put the cameras into the system? And
that's a great question. Majority of these items, really all of them, were brought to us from our own collections department, our collections supervisor, through their routine CCTV inspections, as you mentioned. There are certain segments which are unnavigable through the CCTV tractor, whether it's root intrusion or offset joints. Sometimes they have to abandon surveys and they can't complete not just cleaning and maintenance of the line, they can't even bring this CCTV from manhole to manhole. So for the most extreme sewer segments that they face, they end up, compiling them in a list, and that list grows. And then when the next program 2021 comes up, we tackle all of those segments for them. In the future, asset management will play a bigger role in identifying those segments.
okay. Either way, I really appreciate the proactiveness. It's bad enough when we have a water line break, but it's devastating when we have a sewer line break, right? And it's devastating to the environment and public health. And so it's absolutely critical that we stay on top of it. It sounds like we're going to make a lot of progress and some needed rehabilitation throughout our district.
Indeed.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of the trenchless technology is that we're not ripping up streets. So that's a big benefit to the constituents.
Yeah, I also want to point out, interesting enough, that this project was done about 2 years ago. And this project that Ryan's bringing forward is about 24% more scope than what was done before, about 16% less cost. So we're actually getting more done cheaper. So.
And why is that? Is it just a function of the new technology, or?
I think it's probably a function of volume. The larger these projects, where there's a volume equation to this, where the more scope we can give the contractor, you just have less cost, just because the labor costs, the mob costs are all the fixed. But certainly if you can get more of these liners in the ground. It's just going to be cheaper, and it just could be a function of the market as well.
And thankfully, we quit using clay pipe.
Yeah, we actually stopped using clay pipe in about 2002. So even though I think it's about 62% of our district, so it's a big chunk.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
For one, you mentioned those irregularities in some of those bids. Who goes through all of them? I mean, to pick up a contractor's license? Is that our legal counsel? I mean, that's pretty. Oh, can you hear me? That's pretty good. So thank you. I mean, to pick up a subcontractor's, a contractor's license board number.
That sounds like they were busy.
I mean, that's a lot
busy
of.
on this one.
It's
Do you-
not me,
do you
it's
sleep
not
well?
me, it's Rebecca Chaparro.
Is
who's
that what it
way
is,
smarter
Rebecca?
than me, so. yeah.
So one, just kudos to that. I mean, that's a lot of work just to pick that up. And then two, have we used Southwest before, this company?
I believe the district does have a working relationship with Southwest from the past. I myself have never worked with them while I've been here.
Gotcha. But we have some type of relationship with them that we work.
Yes, and they're well-known in the industry.
Okay,
it's
so-
not a-
Yeah, they've been around since the 90s.
And is there any warranties? I mean, is there different warranties that each of these companies give? I mean, is there workmanship or materials or anything for
There's a standard 1-year workmanship and materials. warranty.
all companies pretty much have the same standard one? There's not one company that offers anything better as far as warranty goes?
It's a contractual obligation through our PSA, through our construction contract documents,
Okay, no, just.
which is
interesting.
pretty industry standard. And one thing about the bids is the tight clustering from 615,000 to
Yeah.
652 among 5 contractors is pretty rare to see that tight of a cluster.
That's
I
good.
was wondering.
It's good
yeah,
Good
it's not-
sign.
It's good bids.
Yeah, that is. No, good, thank you.
Okay. Sure.
So it looks like some of these are ductile iron pipe. And I know that we have approved a project in the past to explore the repair and be proactive about ductile iron pipe. It was in my neck of the woods. So I'm wondering, these ductile iron pipes, look, up on Twin Oaks Golf Course and a little bit farther on La Granada. Are these the same issues that we're seeing or that we were trying to prevent before with the different project? Just, it's fuzzy to me. Maybe you can just remind me.
Ductile iron poses significant challenges, especially in gravity sewer. Sewer gases react with ferric pipelines. So between water, ductile iron service and water applications is under pressure. It's under pressure in water transmission, water distribution. And typically the corrosion and defects in the pipe happen from the outside in water. But it's oftentimes in sewer where that corrosion begins from the inside out.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing that difference. I appreciate it.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion. To approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve staff recommendation. Please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, on to 2.3. Adoption of resolution certifying a mitigated negative declaration for the emergency bypass rehabilitation project.
Yeah, I'll kick it off and hand it over to Ryan again. So in all of our projects, construction projects, we have to comply with CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. And in item 2.1 tonight, we talked about kind of a process that we will be going through. This is kind of the final stage of that process for another project. So Ryan, if you want to kick
Thank
that off.
you. Thank you, General Manager Prum. This item begins on page 48 of your board packet. And this project has been brought before the board before. The district maintains the existing 16-inch diameter emergency bypass, thank you, sewer outfall. This pipeline serves as an emergency bypass or relief sewer, which intercepts inbound flows to Meadowlark Reclamation Facility. redirects them to the land outfall. This pipeline was installed originally in 1969. This serves as a very important role for operations and maintenance staff, and also at Meadowlark for the functions that need to go on there. Looking at the map in front of you, you can see the environmentally sensitive area, which is denoted in that corridor to the just between Korea Way and Melrose Drive. This corridor here is the focus of the environmental study, whereas the entire project spans from Rancho Santa Fe Road over to Melrose. So it's not the entire project alignment that we need to study. It's specifically this environmentally sensitive area that's denoted here in the map. And you'll also see two different colored lines on the map. The emergency bypass is the brown line. The green line, which you see, is a 12-inch ductile iron pipe, which is commonly referred to as a fail-safe outfall. This was installed in 1980. It's a parallel, it runs in a parallel alignment to the emergency bypass, and it serves a different function, but also very important. It connects Meadowlark to the ocean outfall, Encina's ocean outfall. It follows the parallel alignment through the existing sewer easement, Vallecitos sewer easement. And it allows up to 3 million gallons per day of diverted secondary effluent to the ocean outfall. This is non-tertiary treated water. Typically, this occurs during low recycled water demands or when Meadowlark systems are experiencing an outage. Could be for scheduled maintenance or water quality disruptions at the plant where they would use this flexibility. Both outfall pipelines have experienced multiple failures, resulting in sewer spills requiring emergency action to make repairs. Due to the sensitive location of the work and past regulatory actions levied against the district, the board authorized a PSA for engineering and environmental services on March 17th, 2021 to rehabilitate both pipelines. The project is currently in final design, and an evaluation of potential environmental impacts was required per the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Staff executed a professional services agreement with Recon Environmental in the amount of $48,391 on October 28th, 2020. The scope was to prepare an initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the project corridor between Melrose Drive and Korea Way. Based on reports contained in the initial study, staff determined that the proposed project excavations may impact the environment. Staff recommended per CEQA section 15070 that an MND and mitigation monitoring and reporting program be adopted. CEQA section 15073 requires the notice of preparation, initial study, and draft MND be sent to the public agencies and interested parties concerned with the project, and these parties have 30 days to review and comment. The board authorized circulation of the emergency bypass rehab project's notice of preparation, initial study, and draft MND. Staff commenced the 30-day public review period on October 13th, 2021. 15 copies of these documents were delivered to the state clearinghouse for distribution to interested public agencies. Staff also created a map and listing of properties within a 500-foot radius of the project alignment. Notice of preparation was sent to all these residents and all these properties. Those interested were invited to contact the district to receive additional information and voice any concerns they may have. Draft MND was also posted on the district's website throughout this review period. The 30-day review period ended on November 15th, 2021. District received a total of 0 comment letters from the public. Staff has prepared a resolution that would approve the MND, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and find that, first of all environmental impacts of the project are less than significant with the mitigation set forth in the MND and MNRP. And second, there is no substantial evidence in the administrative record supporting a fair argument that the project may result in significant environmental impacts. The adoption of the resolution certifying an MND for the project and staff recommendation was presented to the Engineering and Equipment Committee on March 22nd, 2022. If the board adopts this resolution, staff will file a notice of determination with the San Diego County Clerk and a certificate of fee exemption with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Funding for this project is provided through the district's sewer replacement fund. The project was approved with the district's fiscal year 2021 to 2022 budget with a total project amount of $3,210,000. Staff, with the support from the Engineering and Equipment Committee, recommend adopting the resolution approving the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the emergency bypass rehabilitation project. This resolution also directs staff to file a notice of determination with the San Diego County Clerk and a certificate of fee exemption with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. With that, I will take any questions there, maybe.
Any questions?
You mentioned non-tertiary water. Is that the same thing as secondary water, secondary treated water?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just trying to get clarification. The 3.2 million is to replace all the pipeline? Or, I mean, why are we singling out this environmentally sensitive area? I mean, is that what, explain the connection between the two, if you would.
Yeah, the total project cost is budgeted, as I previously mentioned. This step for the MND and initial study must be taken, which typically we would do during contract award. However, the project has been slightly stalled in final design, which we're currently in right now. And to bring this to a close, to end the CEQA process and adopt this resolution, staff decided to do this in advance tonight before we are ready with the contract award. So instead of the board taking action on award of the contract and what this would be at the same time, we're doing this independently tonight.
I got you. Okay, no, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, the section in particular, southeast of the environmentally sensitive area, is an area that I've recently ridden my mountain bike through. And it looks like that there's already some, like almost a creation of a dirt road through there. It used to be like just a path, like a single track path. Or is that us kind of getting started and evaluating what's going on out there, or is that somebody else?
It is our easement.
Okay.
It is our easement. I've walked it, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and it varies in width as you go. Some locations are more rugged than others. And as you head east, it opens up and becomes more.
Yes.
More
Yeah.
open.
When you get closer to Rancho Santa Fe, it's wide open.
Exactly. It is our easement. We have not started any work on mobilizing any equipment or doing any kind of.
It looked to me that somebody has, so you may want to just check it out or have the crews check it out. I mean, I'm not saying that anything's wrong. I'm just saying somebody's out there doing something.
Our own crews had to repair a breakout in that general area 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And so I know that they were out there fixing a broken pipeline at that time. But anything more recent than that, I'm not aware of, but we can look into it.
Okay, and then a follow-up question. Now to the area of the environmentally sensitive area within the box. That particular stretch is a very heavily used path. I think it's paved. That it's part of this big looping circle that the residents of Carrillo, Rancho Dorado, and the Laurels use. If you go out there on a Saturday, there could be literally hundreds of people out there. Do you anticipate that when we're doing that construction of that piece of it, that there's going to be an impact to where the residents will not be able to use that part of the trail?
That's a good question. That trail is operated by the city of Carlsbad, and it is frequently used when we were out there with a site visit. These pipelines are actually off the trail, down the embankment that you see, and it's heavily vegetated.
Okay.
So as part of our design, we've mitigated a lot of our approach to install a CIPP liner, which we just talked about, to perform a trenchless improvement. It'll regain its full structural strength, pipeline strength, and it'll minimize the amount of our excavation. A goal being in that is to place the launch and receiving pits that are going to be needed for that in a convenient location where we're not closing off access to those trails. Again, once we get into that heavily vegetated embankment zone, we're in the environmentally sensitive area. So any excavation we do there would require this MND in place. This is why we're doing this, because if things happen to not go as planned and we need to excavate more than we had originally thought, or something along those lines, we're covered environmentally. But as far as the hiking access and trails, it's not, we want to get off the trail and stage so that we're not impacting the public so closely.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we'd be looking at that through the submittal process with the awarding contractor too. Any sort of traffic control or staging, we would be reviewing that and working with Carlsbad to make sure we get the proper notification protection to the pedestrians.
Right. Thank you.
So you didn't get any comment letters during the review period from Carlsbad either?
We got nothing. Yeah, that surprised me as well to get nothing. But yeah, we received zero letters even from Carlsbad.
Any other questions?
So just as an emergency bypass line, how many days typically is this used in a 1 year? Out of 365 days, how many days is there water flowing through this pipe?
Well, right now it can't be used at all.
It's not even usable.
It's not used. Yeah, it cannot be used until.
I mean, typically on like when it was, I mean, how often is it being used? Just heavy rain events, which is, okay, gotcha. That answers my question. So it's not, I mean, it's not used at all. I mean, when I say at all, not very much, a couple days a year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, if there's a product where you need to shut down or facility, or you need this facility, the problem with not having it is if you don't have it, then you're still in sewer.
Yeah, no, I understand having it. I just wanted to see the usage factor. Yeah, I mean, you need it. It's definitely needed. It's just one of those things that, man, okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the staff's recommendation. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Ryan, you can go home and sleep, man. You did a good job.
All right, I think that concludes our action items. So we're on to reports.
Yeah, thank you, President Elithorp. Three real quick items. One is just want to let the board know that we continue to work with the city of San Marcos on South Lake. So and they want to use South Lake as a recreational amenity, as you all know. So our staff did revise and create a latest version of the agreement. We sent it over to them. So the ball's in their court. So we'll wait for them to respond to us. And hopefully we can get that agreement done and get the facility open sometime this summer. That'd be great. Second item, just want to let the board know that we have completed the state water payment arrearages program. Remember, we submitted for funds to help those customers that couldn't pay their bills because of COVID related issues. We got somewhere in the order of $200 and something thousand for more than 300 of our customers. We've applied all of that money to those qualifying customers' bills to help them out. So we got to keep a small administrative portion, but the vast majority of the funds, 98% or whatever, go to help our customers, which is great. And the last item is similarly on the wastewater. The state has just kicked off their wastewater arrearages program. So same thing, those customers on their wastewater bills that are behind in payment, there's a similar program. We've submitted the application. We haven't received the money yet, but we submitted an application for about $46,000. So assuming that gets approved and we get the money, we'll start crediting the appropriate customers' bills on that too. And that's all I have.
Glenn, thanks for sharing that. Good news. Can you refresh my memory? Was this only for residential customers or did it also include business or nonprofit customers?
Is Wes here? Yeah, I don't know, Wes, can you help me with that?
It did?
Yeah, the water demands were both in, but we didn't have any commercial customers either one.
Okay. I had a nonprofit, San Marcos nonprofit, reach out to me had an event that was asking if we had any opportunities like that, I'll probably give their phone number to you, Glenn, and you can talk to them. If it's too late, it's too late.
Yeah,
But if it's not, then
I
that'd
think
be nice.
it's definitely too late for the water program, maybe too late for the wastewater, but you can direct them.
Thank you.
All right, district legal counsel.
Excuse me, just a brief item. Last week, the governor issued a new executive drought order. In case you didn't see it. It's in furtherance of his prior executive orders on drought, and heard Ed mention the rain. I was a little surprised by some of the stats in there. I mean, this was the driest first 3 months in any calendar year of state recorded history. And I mean, my car's seen more rain, I think lately I felt, but obviously a different era. Under this, water suppliers will be required to activate water storage contingency plans level 2, which is a 20% reduction in supplies. It also includes a voluntary item, which encourages people to activate more stringent reductions up to a 30% or level 3. It also is directing the state board to look at non-functional turf and to consider banning irrigation of all non-functional turf for commercial, industrial, and institutional properties. And so that went into effect last week. The state board is expected to consider further regulations and adopt them by mid-May.
And coupled with that, staff will be bringing an item in front of the board at the April 20th meeting to ask the board to set a drought level 2. You may recall that we're in drought level 1 and the general manager has that authority, and I utilized that authority, I think, back in January. Anything above level 1 requires the board approval, so there will be an item on the April 20th agenda.
Any word on governor going to something mandatory after this step?
Not that I've heard yet.
This is
but it's-
predominantly voluntary.
Yeah.
This action that you just talked about.
Well, the level 2 is mandatory, but the above that is voluntary. I don't know how.
But
far-
they haven't gone to mandatory savings quantities.
Not yet,
by
correct.
district. Okay, thank you. Next is San Diego County Water Authority. The Water Authority had their regular March board meeting on March 24th. Just a couple items of note. The board authorized the general manager to award a design build contract to Michael's Pipe Services in the amount of $22.1 million for the first aqueduct treated water tunnels rehabilitation project. And it was interesting to me because I didn't know the first aqueduct went through tunnels. Apparently there's 3 or 4 tunnel sections. So that's quite a project. The other item of note kind of came out of closed session, and the board approved the imported water committee's recommendation that at the board's regular June meeting, the issue of what to do with $14.6 million in attorney fees, costs, and interest paid by MWD of Southern California to the Water Authority on March 21st, 2022, be part of the closed session on the MWD litigation. So we're going to discuss the disposition of those funds, and stay tuned to see what we decide on that. So, okay. Next is Scene and Wastewater Authority.
We had one closed session event, and the reportable action was a personnel matter that we'll wait to see what happens.
Nothing other than that to report. Okay, next is standing committees. Any standing committees?
3 committee met, and we had some discussion about the drought level 2. We had a lot of discussion about, what it looks like to reduce your water usage by 20%. And we threw around some ideas that Vallecitos might be able to put together a video to show some specific tactics for the public to make it easy for them to understand how they might be able to do that. So we had that, we tossed around that idea. We also talked about the May 7th event from 10 to 12 in Woodland Park called Bark in the Park. And how that's going to highlight the hydration stations and how they are very fur baby friendly with the dog bowls. I'm personally very excited about that. I will try to make an appearance with my dog. And so we talked a little bit about that, and there's going to be an adoption element to that, as well as potentially a canine demonstration. That's potential. I'm not sure that that's confirmed yet. So that's really exciting. Thirdly, we talked about the program that Bill Dean has put together that we've been talking about that for months now. It's really exciting. It kicked off. It's going to be, it started, I guess, 3 days ago, right? 3 days at La Costa Meadows Elementary School, where it's a program where Bill Dean teaches fifth graders about water, all about water. And it's just such a tremendous program that can help young people gain a better appreciation of where our water comes from, and hopefully grow up to have an appreciation of how to protect it, keep it clean and safe, and protect the planet. And I think that's it. We talked a little bit about, one of the things that I hear a lot of, not a lot, but folks feel like they can call me about is if they have a water leak. And I'm grateful that they do, but there's some question about, well, what is the customer's responsibility and what is Vallecitos's responsibility? So we had a conversation about sort of clarity around that as well. And I hope that my constituents are able to watch that once it's put on the website, and it'll bring some clarity around that. I think that's it. Anything else?
Just talked about 216 a little bit.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about 216. We talked about 216 a lot. That's on my page too. Yes, so we will be bringing forward some recommendations about how to modify 216. We'll bring it back to the board.
Great.
How could I forget?
Mr. President,
Yes.
we did have an engineering committee. Those items that we talked about were brought this evening to the board, and we approved them.
Very good. The Finance Committee met on March 21st. Items for discussion were the fiscal year 2023 operating budget request by department, and there was definitely some impacts from COVID, inflation, and supply chain issues that I noticed in the discussions. So, anyway, more to come on that with the budget process. We also discussed the overall budget calendar. So that was it for finance. Okay. Next is director's reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended. I guess not. Okay, next is director's comments and future agenda items.
Just more of a question. We had a water line break a couple weeks ago on Island over in Rancho Dorado. And I know we've communicated on it, Glenn, about there's been a patch that's been laid over the break. But do we have any updates yet when we're gonna make the permanent repairs? And I have a constituent, a neighbor, a friend, neighbor of yours as well, who texts me literally every day, and he's now deemed this, his pothole, and asks, when is it going to be fixed?
Then he should fix it. If it's his.
So-
I'll let Mr. Pedrazzi address the timing of that. I don't know if you know anything about the permanent repairs.
So typically after a water main break, we wait a few months before we do the permanent repairs
Okay.
because the ground underneath gets completely saturated. We're digging up mud and putting back good material in the hole, but beyond that is still wet. So we actually wait a few months, especially now we've got some good heat, to make sure everything dries out. We will get some additional sinking. If we went out right now and did the permanent patch, we'd be back in a few months having to do it all over again. So
Okay.
we'll be on the next patch list though.
Okay, great. And if you mentioned that a temporary patch is kind of sinking, and can we just have somebody not make a special trip, but while our crews are out and about, if they could do a drive-by and just check, make sure that there's not a potential that somebody's car could be damaged, or there's twisted ankle or something along those lines.
Yeah, we'll go back out, probably tomorrow, we'll be back out to look at it again. We've been tied up on Barham with a major project.
I
We
understand.
had a leak there. That should be completed tomorrow, but I'll make sure we get a crew out to add a little more of the temporary patch to it.
Right, thank you.
And if I may add, that's an example where the permanent repairs to the pavement will be much bigger than the pothole repair that you see right now, because all we did was repair the hole we excavated. But if you'll notice, the pavement along the curb and gutter
Yeah, I
line lifted
did.
for several hundred feet. So we'll have to be removing a lot of that pavement to make sure that the pavement matches the curb and gutter lip, so there's not trip hazards in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other director comments?
I just wanted to compliment staff once again for the JPIA award. That's really tremendous. And it feels a little silly for the board members to take the picture with the check. I honestly think that you all should take your picture with the check. So maybe we can do that next time. So thank you. I also want to compliment James for putting out emails about the Barham water main break and keeping us all updated on that. So thank you for that. And finally, I had the opportunity to visit the Fallbrook Public Utility Santa Margarita Conjunctive Use Project. I had to read that because it's a really long name, but it was really cool to see another facility other than what we have at Vallecitos that's also groundwater based. So I got the chance to visit that, and it was really cool, fascinating.
All right. Any other director's comments? Seeing none, I think we're at the point of adjournment.
All right.